And I will go ahead and record. All right. And then just a quick reminder that this is an interactive learning community. So when we do have our breakout groups, that's the opportunity for discussion. And we ask that you have your microphone on and your webcam if possible, so that we can get that collaborative piece of our echo session. And if you have any questions during any other portion, please put it in the chat and we will have someone respond to you. And lastly, please rename yourself to your name and your title or role and your site if it fits. And you can do this by clicking on the 3 dots on your screen when you hover over your face, and then choose rename. All right. And now I will pass it over to our facilitator, who I'm sure everyone knows by now, Dr. Jennifer Hall-Landy. And I will read her very quick bio for those of you who are new, and welcome if you are new, and welcome to everyone else today. Dr. Jennifer Hall-Landy leads our early intervention work at our institute. She is a psychologist and researcher with a specialty in early developmental delays, and does a lot of work around childhood development and developmental monitoring. Dr. Hall-Landy is also a faculty in our UMN LEND program and leads the ACT Early project. Her work is committed to increasing access and reducing health disparities. Welcome, Jen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is so nice to see everybody. I look forward to this time every week, and I really want to thank everyone because I know it is summer. And I know for some of you, it's a holiday week or a long weekend. So thank you. We are really excited to have everyone here today. I'll just do our quick overview, and then I am going to introduce our speaker today. But as all of you know by now, and in case we have anyone new, this is called Project Scope. It stands for Supporting Children of the Opioid Epidemic. We focus on Neonatal Abstinence Syndrome or Neonatal Opioid Withdrawal Syndrome. We are a community of early intervention providers supporting children and families, and we use the ECHO virtual training model, which all of you who've been here before are probably familiar with. But next slide, please, Courtney. Oh, are we going to play our video of Project Scope? If you'd like, we can.
It's up to you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We have a short little video because Sameerah hasn't seen it.
All right, let me turn my volume up.
Children affected by the opioid epidemic and its related trauma have unique needs. Their families require additional support, and providers who support them must have the right tools to promote healthy development. Project Scope, or Supporting Children of the Opioid Epidemic, is an innovative national training initiative intended to standardize, develop, and expand educational practices to give providers the tools and the confidence to best address opioid-related challenges impacting children and families. Through collaborative video conferencing technology, Project Scope utilizes the ECHO model to bring together early childcare and healthcare professionals and other service providers. Outcomes for children, families, and early care systems will be improved through interdisciplinary education and skill development, especially in historically difficult to reach and hard-hit rural areas. Project Scope provides practical applications of advanced and real-time research findings. For providers, it means better knowledge and skills. For children and families, it means better outcomes and hope. Learn more at nti-scope.com.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm glad it played. Ready for the next slide? I know many of you have seen that before. So what is ECHO? It stands for Extension for Community Health Outcomes. There's a few key foundational components. We always promote health equity. The goal of any ECHO is to take knowledge and share it. Knowledge isn't stored in one place in universities or metro areas. It's everyone has knowledge to contribute and we share together. Sometime, I try and share something new each time, but if you look at the history of ECHO, a lot of it is in the medical field. And it started with, and I can never say this word correctly, but a specialist gastroenterologist. Did I say that correctly, Jessica and Courtney? That's a multisyllabic word. He kept seeing patients that were coming and had advanced stage disease that could have been prevented only if their care providers in their communities had had some basic training. So he decided to start the ECHO model and say, knowledge needs to be shared. We bring knowledge from here to the people that attend, and they share with us what they need in their community. So it's a great model. Really at the foundation is reducing disparities and increasing access and breaking down barriers and bridging, as the video said, education and healthcare together. And we are a community of practice, so we all learn together. Next slide. Again, the 4 principles, we use technology. We always do it over Zoom, which I know everything's over Zoom right now, but prior to the pandemic, it was always virtual so we could reach all over the state. We do best practices to reduce disparity and increase health. We always do a case study, which Dr. Simasek will do later, yay. And we always send out a survey to evaluate our work and learn what you found valuable and how we can improve even more in sharing our resources with you. Next slide. Believe it or not, we're on session 7. We have had 6 to date wonderful sessions, and I think today will be another one. It is called African American Approaches to Family-Centered Care. We have one more after this. And again, you know the schedule. I'm actually 2 minutes ahead of schedule, yay, if I don't talk too much more. And with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker today. All right, and I have her bio right here. All right, I wanted to welcome Miss Sameerah Bilal-Roby, who is director of the Wilder African American Babies Coalition and Projects, and is also the program manager for the Integrated Care High Risk Pregnancies Initiative, which include the Brains Are Built campaign, co-partner with me and my baby Brain Building Bags, and co-producer with Twin Cities Public Television Brains Are Built public service announcement, which happened to be awarded the 2017 Upper Midwest Emmy Award. That's wonderful. Her focus is on early childhood brain development and toxic stress, infant mortality and low birth weight, equity and disparities in training and health, specifically in the African American community. She sits on many community action committees, such as Baby's First Year Community Engagement Board, March of Dime, now partners in seasonal lunches under her management of the AABC Integrated Care High Risk Pregnancy Initiative for Black women. Sameerah is passionate about influencing grassroots people, enabling them to speak at important tables, and is a catalyst for systemic change. She was honored to be presented with the Friend of the Family Award from the Minnesota Family Council on Relationships, the Shaking Things Up AABC Award, and the Minnesota Community Caring for Children Champions for Children Award recognition, and the Minnesota African American Heritage Award honoree 2020. Very impressive. Sameerah, we are so happy to have you today and have you share your knowledge and expertise. So welcome. We are looking forward to your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. So I'm going to talk about the African American approaches to family-centered care. And I want to first say I'm the grandmother of 19. I have raised 5 children, 3 biologic, 2 I raised that were also family from the marriage that I was in. And they were, they had been, well, there was issues, of course, with opioid. And they're doing wonderful right now. So I'm very proud of that. So we're going to move forward. So talking about the African American whole family awareness, I want to highlight that what that is really is about family honesty, community improvement. That is our values. The family, when we talk about family directness, it's our elders who will be present, building the knowledge, advice, and blessings, by the way, giving their blessings a lot of times to move forward if we're listening. So of course you have the parents, the children, the spiritual leaders, and extended members. What our assets are is that we do want and love safe communities, medical care, proper and appropriate medical care, education. We need to and want to help set policies that are comprehensible and will work, are applicable. We work for safety nets. I'll talk a little bit about that, and respect for each other's cultural heritage. We'll talk about that also. When we talk about the business in whole family, this makes up who we are. We need good employment. We need access to operate with natural ease. We need the ability to create, and we will create for us by us. But very important is we want the ability to partner with everyone. So I jumped there and I'm going up again to the directness in speaking, firmness in cause and sharing. That is very much a value of the African-American community. And people sometimes may not understand how we communicate, but it is based on directness and firmness. You could go to the next slide. So what do we need and how? We need reduction of stress, improving communication, culturally relevant services, improving appointments and better reactions, mechanisms building trust with healthcare workers and receiving more cultural training. We need our healthcare workers to continuously work on increasing their knowledge and culturally appropriate care. We need more businesses that are appropriate. We have a lot of businesses, but there are some businesses that will be able to improve our community economics by communication, getting in the products that we naturally use and we're used to, and it goes on. Acceptance of everybody's beliefs, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later here. Messages of love, hope, and joint projects working together. We need innovative thought. And right now, a lot of my work is encouraging the young to join in building the community, building that work and hearing them, accepting differences, creative ways to look at health and community, welcoming all differences and resources, and challenging assumptions and systems that are harmful. We need to work with the community. We need to work with all of you in challenging those assumptions by taking a good look at oneself. I have to do it constantly, and I'm a woman of color, but I have to question my assumptions because we all have them. And being ready to go on a journey that can help shift our thinking, shift my thinking, shift your thinking for inclusiveness. The next slide. So I talked about innovation, and you see some words up there: future, quality, ideas. Next slide. And I'm moving through this quickly because I want to get a short time here, but I want to first put out front the article that is posted by Representative Ruth Richardson, who is the executive director, I'm sure all of you know, of Wayside Recovery, and Alice Mann, MD. And in 2020, Minnesota leaders declared racism a public health crisis, including the Hennepin County Board, the Minnesota House of Representatives, the Minneapolis City Council and Mayor, and the Olmsted County Board of Commissioners. The Minnesota House became the first legislature in the nation to pass a statewide declaration naming this crisis and created the House Select Committee on Racial Justice. And here's an excerpt from that same article. Black and Indigenous infants are twice as likely to die before their first birthday than white infants, which Jennifer addressed. The disparity between infant mortality rates for Black and white babies today is larger than the gap experienced under chattel slavery. However, when Black newborns are cared for by Black physicians, they are less likely to die in hospital settings, and the excess mortality rate is cut almost in half. You can look up that article. I encourage you to look up that article. Look up the article and read more. Next slide. In the article, they say, It is possible to reduce these unacceptable disparities. It is possible to reduce these unacceptable disparities. Next slide. So I want you to go to slide 19, Courtney. The next slide. So with urgency, we need to fill the bucket with equity, with humanity, and understand we're all in this bucket together. We don't want any leaks. Go back to the slide 18, please, Courtney. So it's important, referrals are very important to build access in our community. And I can't see the screen, I did it too small, but in there, there's 17 different agencies who are working in the community in referrals and have dumped in that bucket. And there's a whole lot more, but let me see if I can read my small writing. The Integrated Care High-Risk Pregnancy Institute, ICHIRP, Wayside Recovery Center, Water Foundation, St. Paul Promise Neighborhoods, SPPN, Northside Achievement Zone, which is known as NAS, Simpson Housing, North Point Medical Center, Open Cities Medical Center, Minnesota Community Cares Medical Center, Hennepin Ramsey Birthing Centers, Children's Hospital, March of Dimes, Black Men Healing, UCare, United Health, Health Partners, Clinic and Foundations, and PN3, and how this directly, and I said, if I left anybody out, they're in the bucket. Couldn't put everybody on my page. The direct impact, is that we are all working through birthing and low birth delivery, opioid and drug recovery, historical trauma, certification for perinatal navigators, business consultation, economic and community development, shelter and housing, whole family healthcare, birthing centers, pediatric care, and male inclusive training and voices. I want to go back to Representative Ruth Richardson. She contracted with me to get a group of African-American women who work in the field of opioid and the low turnaround for African-American women. We did a report. She will be releasing that to DHS, and I encourage you all to reach out to her to get that report also. The next slide, I'm sorry. Next slide. And then go back one. And then there's a quote right at the bottom that helps with, we cannot afford, you guys, we cannot afford leaks. Because in those leaks, somebody's losing. The nations are like a drop from a bucket and are regarded as a speck of dust on the scales. So I just wanted to put that quote, let's keep moving. So everything is centered around the African-American baby's health and future success. And then there's that cute baby there. And what do you see right there? The baby's brain. The next slide. And so the African-American community is not all the same or always move the same. It's quite diverse, but it does understand that all the icons in this child's head are needed for a lifetime of success. Appropriate attention to birthing, brain development, quality education, and love liberates the human spirit to soar. Next slide. And then we have soaring. I love it. It's beautiful. Next slide. So, get it. Women and the healthcare systems. We crawl first, we stand, we walk, we run, and then we fly. That baby right there, we want one day, no matter what the color is of that baby, to be able to fly. Next slide. So this is some of the things that I do in my work at Wilder. We have a youth healthcare awareness training that I bring in professionals to talk to them. The difference of ours is we talk about disparities, where the disparities come from, how they can look for it, how they can be a part of not building onto the disparities. It is focused with BIPOC community, specifically the African American and Native American community, but they all came. We support in a lot of the clinics with the iChirp, mother dialogues that are going on for new moms and moms to be. We do a community host training, the living room conversations, because we want to make sure that our community, the African American community, does not have to go to the doctor to be told how they should be functioning or working with their babies, that we address to them the social determinants of health so that they can be a partner with the doctors and the nurses and the clinics and the hospitals. We want to give voice. Birthing and delivery choices is very big with the health equity groups that we work with, and take the innate feeling and culture of the mother into account. We do parenting and social determinants of health training. We do adverse childhood training, which I think all of you have heard as ACEs. We now, with the DOL, have know their rights, or know your rights, it really should say. And that is going to be on radio, it's on websites. And I want to say that the Minnesota Breastfeeding, they have done one also with the Department of Labor on knowing your rights on breastfeeding when you're at work. So ours comes more from the labor of carrying heavy things, the things that would make you have a low birth weight, stress on your body, those type things in the labor force. And then the Minnesota Breastfeeding, they have a wonderful one on breastfeeding. Okay. We do twice yearly access, and we do dialogues, lunches, and it's for building the pathways, and you're all invited to those. We do customized training, and we do tabling and support other birth equity initiatives in the Twin Cities. You see the March Dimes. I'm very proud that the local Minnesota and national are partners with us. And then the one down with the baby held up, that is the logo for the integrated care high-risk pregnancy. The top is the logo, and our youth got bags, everything with that. One showing wearing the mask, but two showing diversity. So you can go to the next slide. So we are making connections with multi-generation members. We have access to a young group who's working on making sure our messages get out on Twitter, Facebook, wherever we feel that it is apparent where we can reach out to our young people. We work with everybody on the perinatal navigation certification, and we're working on the home visiting etiquettes that will be part of it. We're strong working with everybody, talking about postpartum visits and parenting. Generational trauma is very important, and violence prevention and intervention referrals and trainings. Healthy childhood experiences, I talked about ACEs, and barriers to whole families, human growth and development and community development. That's what it's all about. It's about the healthy births, the historical trauma, and ACEs. So we're doing all of that, and we're making sure that we're reaching everybody, because we have seniors that are, caring for their children. We have seniors that are working, taking care of children from experiences of opioid. We have everybody who's dealing with incarceration families. Everything that you can name, our community is working with. It is a hill to climb, but we're doing it. Next slide. So where are we going? So I already said, and she introduced me, my home base is Wouters Foundation. Wouters Foundation is working even more in depth on the whole family domain. So which that means stability, health, connections, continuous building on emerging needs. That's what we're doing right now. And I am, I enjoy this work. I should have retired, but I'm determined that when I have to just say this, when I was 45, I was like, so when I leave, what is it going to look like? And me and another woman who was European American, we were partners. We talked about this. She helped me find funding. She went off one direction with more legislation, and I went working specifically in the African American community. And I still think that me and her are partners. We talk, we know where each other is, what we're doing, and we support each other's work because this is important work. The next slide. I'm almost done, you guys. So, of course, there's a life cycle that we all want. We all want for our babies. We all want money, and we'd like to have a car that runs, and we'd like to have housing. And that's the life cycle all families want. And then we want to grow old and be elders. Except I don't want to do the cane, but you know, that's why I have to do it. But that's what we all want. Next slide. The life cycle, the toddler, all Black families want the best for their children, if they are living in poverty or not. Believe it or not, please do not have an assumption because of families living in poverty and may not be looking good and the way you think they should look. They do want what's best for their child. They may not have the skills right now. They may be missing some of the resources, but they want it. The next slide. Childhood. We're all working hard to reach every child on prevention of adverse childhood, child trauma, and train the community's understanding of brain development in the womb to the age of 7. I always say that I'm like teen to the womb to age of 7. I want to get past that pipeline to prison. And so that's where my focus is. And we're going to keep working at that. Next slide. So we encourage everyone goes and insists that there are opportunities to attend universities, healthcare, education, jobs, food for all human rights and all human rights. That's what we want. They don't have to go to a university, but we want them to have the opportunity to be successful. The next slide. So the autumn years, of course, we want safety and we want health and, Courtney, hit it. Hit it, Courtney. And we want to become elders. That's what we all want. The next slide. So it's been my pleasure. I'm going to say goodbye or wherever Jennifer wants me right now. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you, Sameerah. That was a wonderful presentation. I so appreciate it. I like this little goodbye slide as well. Very, very cute. Well, I'm going to start. I'm going to throw, this is a chance. We have some time. It was a great presentation. I'm going to throw out the first question and others can, if you have a few more minutes to stay with us. Here's my question. I ask it every time, so people are going to know where I'm going with this, but our audience is predominantly early education providers. Some work in birth through 3, some work in 3 through 5. What you gave a lot of good information on this, but if it was one thing that you could really tell them in the work they do and working with families and young children, what do you think is the most important advice you can give or the guiding principle? It's a big question, I know.
Well, it is a big question, and I'm not sure if you guys are going to like it. And I already told you in the beginning that I speak pretty direct.
Yep.
I think the one thing that all of us have to look at right now is where we sit in undoing biases and racism, because it has a lot to do with not only how the child is going to develop, but how the parents are going to feel.
Yep.
And I look at everything, like I said, I started at 45, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm 68. And I look in the future to what am I going to leave behind? And so I listened to a wonderful talk today. Wayside actually put it on. It was Dr. Sameerah Jones. And she talked about, forming your mouth. No, I said this, but she talked about saying the word racism, say racism, name it. And I think that once you're able to say that, you're open to learning. What is it about? Because it has nothing to do with culture. Racism and racist behavior is not culture. It is man-made. And it is a system, and it is a system that is structured to value a people. So if you are stuck and are not able to lean into that, then what is that saying to you about your work in the community with the children? And children, I don't care if you're, at the tip of Minnesota, those children will come down to the city one day and have to interact in a multi-generational community. So I would say that all the educators lean in to saying racism, lean into what does that mean? And how do I reflect that?
Thank you. I have you mentioned in talking to a coworker that you said there were certain things you wanted to see, look back at your career and know were accomplished. Can you just share a few of those with us?
Well, for me, it was, you have to understand, I'm a third generation Minnesotan. So and I told you my age. So I was educated here, and I watched the interactions that teachers and parents have now and what they were like when I was young. Let me give you a little background. I was put up for adoption, moved from home to the age of 5. So you can imagine my emotions, what kind of child I was. The last home, the foster mother, really partnered with teachers, and I thought they were all mean. I'm going to tell you the truth. I thought these people were crazy because what I had to do, they put their thumb down. Now, they didn't understand a child that had emotional problems, but they did understand how to get me connected with resources. Okay. So I look at that, the partnering that went on with those teachers, and I look at it now and I don't see the same. That was one of them. I needed to make sure that parents understand communication. Parents understand discipline and what's appropriate. And parents understand where the resources are. So my objective was an intense training for parents. And we brought together a group of 21 women, and we decided we're not going after the parents. We're not going to shame parents. We're going to meet them where they are. We're going to say, you know what you know, you're doing your best. Can we help and give some more? So that was my position. And then the other person, I don't know, did I say her name? Jane Kretzman.
Yeah, I know.
Jane was very political. She's still very political. And she wanted to go off and help, I think it was one of the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and legislation. I was like, I don't do politics. So that's how, and it still comes back, you know, the PN3, the Elders for Babies, all of that works still.
Yes, they do amazing work. Yeah.
Very much so.
Sameerah, thank you. I'm going to open it up to other questions. I have one more quick one, but I want to give others the opportunity. This was so rich and so good and so informative. So we really appreciate it. But I did want to give, you can either chat it in or ask it a chance. And Courtney, can you just let me know? And I'm going to ask Sameerah one other question while and can you just watch the chat, please?
Yep, I'll let you know if anything pops up.
Okay. The lunch, the twice a year that you said everyone's welcome to come to learn. When is the next one? Because I'm sure people here would be interested.
October 28th, I believe.
October 28th. Okay. And
that would be what we call the fall into action.
The fall into action. Oh, we would be happy, you know, we can send that out. You probably don't have invites out yet or anything, but I would be happy to share with this group. Fall into action is the spring. I'm assuming there's a spring one. Does it have spring in the
spring into action is usually around April.
Okay.
I want to say April 28th, but
okay. Okay. I like how you incorporate the seasons into it. So, great. Well, we'll watch for that. And I'm sure a lot of people here would be interested. Courtney, are you seeing any other questions? All right.
Nope.
Well, thank you so much, Sameerah. It was an honor to have you here. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the week. And I think you said you're ready for a vacation. So I hope
I'm doing a vacation. Thank you.
You deserve it. You deserve it. Well, thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Well. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And there's some thank yous in the chat as well. So thank you.
I'm going to read the chats and then I'm leaving.
Okay, no problem. We're just going to start on our case study. And you just stay as long as you want. But if you have to go, that's okay too.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, and with that, I am going to turn our case study over to my colleague, Dr. Jessica Simasek. I don't have a bio, but I know informal bio for her. Dr. Simasek leads our telehealth center at the University of Minnesota. She specializes in early intervention and complex communication needs. She's also a former LEND fellow and LEND faculty, and that stands for Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental Disabilities. We invite all of you to apply if you're ever interested in doing a year of learning with us. Typically Thursday mornings, that's a plug for Lend. But with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Simasek. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that introduction. And it's nice to see everyone. If you were on some of the first sessions in this series, I gave some case presentations then. Excuse me, and I'm happy to be back now as we're rounding towards the end. I can't believe how fast it's gone. So many of you on the call are probably already familiar with how the case presentation portion of the session works. Essentially, I'm going to talk through an example case that everyone is going to have the chance to ask some clarifying questions about. I'll give you whatever information I'm able to. And then we're going to do the small room breakouts where we do have 3 guiding questions, but those questions are really intended to guide you to provide your knowledge and expertise and ask, additional questions so that we're all learning together about resources or strategies or recommendations that you may have. Then we'll come back together and share those out. Since we have not as huge of a group, we might be able to try to consolidate them some depending on time, but either way, we try to do that consolidation outside of the session if we need to, and then Courtney will send that out to everybody with some kind of great recommendations that we hope that you can then use when you are supporting children or families in similar situations where you're practicing or where you're providing services. So I'll walk through this now. I don't want to take too much time, keeping an eye on my time here. We're going to talk about supporting a young child who is about 48 months old. This child was in a foster home placement, and there was also a 1-year-old foster brother in this placement. And then some of the topic areas that will arise in this case study and that we'd encourage you to talk about in the breakout groups are trauma and the child's experience of trauma, likely the biological family's experience of trauma, and then social determinants of health. So the child's foster care placement, previous opioid exposure, the family, kind of the family system in general, dealing with addiction, language development, and sensory seeking kinds of behaviors that the child's engaging in. All right, next slide. I don't know if it's switching yet. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we can all read this, but it's a lot, so I'll kind of read through it with us. So this child was a young boy. I lived with his foster parents and a 1-year-old foster brother. He has a lot of enthusiasm and a really big personality is how he is described. He was put with a foster family who may become an adoptive family when he was around age 2. He had a former foster placement. He has a biological mother and father who have a history of drug use, incarceration, and homelessness. There isn't a lot of medical information about his background or his birth that is known by the foster family. At 3, he was still receiving early intervention services through his child care. He wasn't enrolled in public preschool. He currently receives occupational therapy and developmental intervention. He's attended the same child care program since he was placed with his foster adoptive, hopefully adoptive family. He did stay home sometimes during spring and summer due to COVID, but now he's back in full-time child care. The child care staff has extensive experience working with children impacted by trauma, and the teacher-child ratio is low. The patient or the child and his foster parents attend PCIT, which is parent-child interaction therapy, on a regular basis. I think this comes up on this next slide, but I'll just also give you one other piece of context is he is about to be school age here, and he's kind of had the stability of this child care center and kind of early intervention programming and people who know him well and know how to support him well. That will soon be kind of coming to an end as he's transitioning. And so that's one thing to keep in mind as you think about supporting this child. So strengths, there's this very strong attachment with his foster parents and his foster brother. His parents implement interventions when they're instructed to, or they're given instruction around them. So they're very eager to try and support him in a lot of different ways. They have a lot of experience with the foster system, and they're eager for intervention support services for both himself and to support the rest of the family. Some barriers have been in the past, visits with biological parents were not consistently able to occur for a variety of reasons. And the child has experienced some behavioral and likely due to emotional challenges kind of in the days following those visits. And then there's been a lot of changes in routine and services due to the pandemic, which again are starting to go back to normal, but something to keep in mind that there was a lot of disruption to the services and supports that this child was getting, along with many other children over the past year and a half. All right, next slide, Courtney. Okay, so some of the primary concerns that the family has right now is some delays in speech and language, some sensory seeking kinds of behaviors, which may not always be safe, like climbing on furniture or things of that nature that, again, the child could become injured. And in regards to that, also some concerns around safety and just kind of complying with instructions. And so being safe in the community if they're at the park, not kind of darting off. And then they want some support around routine. So bedtime can be difficult. The child might engage in tantrums. They think he maybe has night terrors or is scared around some of those times. There's some behavioral concerns around the tantrums, again, not because they think that the child is trying to misbehave, but because maybe he's experiencing some emotional things that are upsetting him, or some difficulties with routines, not responding to instructions, especially when they're in regards to safety, and that those has also been expressed by the child care providers. And then just a second bullet, again, making sure that they're keeping this child and other family members safe, and then also making sure the child feels safe emotionally as well as being physically safe. Some questions that will kind of come up in the next slide is what's the best kind of next steps in terms of kind of early education, preschool for the child. And then the family is also seeking an evaluation for autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Okay, next slide. So these are guiding questions. We don't want them to feel limiting. I feel like sometimes when I've been in the small groups, we don't even get through all of them, but things that to kind of give recommendations and center them around, these will kind of come over to your small groups with you as well, I believe. But how does the family and service providers help to support this child to feel very safe, both physically and emotionally? How can they support the child leading up to and following any visits that may continue to occur with their biological family? What strategies or resources can support the child with developmental needs, including communication, kind of that responding to instructions and complying in that sense around things related to safety, especially safety in the community, and reductions in challenging behavior. And then that third bullet, which I think everyone in here is going to be really be equipped to answer all of these, but this one, you'll probably have a lot of really rich information. What should be their next steps for obtaining services to support this child and their family? So with that, I'll pause and see if we have any clarifying questions, which you're welcome to put in the chat, or we have a small.
All right, let's see. Do we have the group back? Oh, hi, Jessica. All right.
Yep.
Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So now we can take all of our recommendations and start either putting them into the chat, or like we said earlier, since we've got, such a nice group here, you could come off of mute and share them, and Courtney can help us capture those if it's easier to share them that way. I know I got to be part of a really great discussion in group 2, but I don't want to share on our behalf because we had no one taking notes. So all right, and as these come in, I can start kind of sharing them out loud. You can also read them, of course, and we will try to synthesize. All right, so some next steps for this family: get those services and evals scheduled ASAP, and not wait for a diagnosis to start to help or support the family. So there's a lot of things that could be done to help support this family now. And that the medical diagnosis is going to come from some kind of primary care referral, most likely, to start that process. And then the educational classification for Part B will come through starting that process with the district. But one thing we really talked about was that, and really the group, I'm not going to take credit, the group was talking about this when I came in, was that this might be kind of like a gap, right? So what about kids who we know are probably they need support. Everyone knows they need support. The family needs support. The child needs support. Yes, they're on the pathway to getting these other more formal services and diagnoses and things like that, likely, but there's things that could be done right now. So some things we talked about is referrals for OT or for speech language pathology, seeing if there's a school social worker. This is a lot of information coming at a family and trying to find, where does it go? It takes a lot of time. And so someone to kind of help keep things going and organized, and knowing who to contact about what, who has openings right now at different providers would be really helpful. And also support, we wanted to see, would there be some support maybe from the county? And places that have family navigators. Some groups are starting to use family navigators more frequently. It would be great to have information on that, again, for these pre-diagnosis children who are in that situation. We talked some about some clinics might have a family navigator, but they might kind of kick in more after the child's received a diagnosis and they're starting services. And so what about families who have some current concerns, but don't have anything kind of formally set up yet. Looking for parent mentors was a great strategy. I loved that. We weren't sure exactly where, but had some ideas on leads to get some of that information, like Pacer and Lutheran Social Services. In terms of the home routines question, again, this child is over the age of 3, and so there's kind of less of a commonness of serving them in the house like they would be if they were in Part C, but there are still services available, and it's important to keep these in our minds. Seeing if there's community-based home visiting, such as through ECFE, if they're experienced and knowledgeable, and so maybe having, to the extent possible, a good relationship with those providers to kind of know who would be available and able to help families with kids who would have a more complex need than would typically be a child who'd be served, solely in ECFE. Seeing if the PCIT could help push in to do home routines if they aren't already. So if they're just going to a clinic to receive those services, do they have some way in which to help with those home routines at home so that that's generalized and worked on? And then the Child Therapeutic Services, or CTSS, has home, oops, I just made mine way too big, has home services available too. Okay, and now there's so much coming in, I'm going to start to get to that point where I'm not going to be able to keep up. But let me see, I was highlighting a lot of group 2, so let me highlight some of room 1 so I can feel like we're balanced. Just a few notes here about, again, the question 1, if keeping the child feeling safe and both physically and emotionally, how could they help support the biological parents so that they're prepared for meetings with their child? That's a great recommendation. Safety with the child, doing things like I love you rituals, conscious discipline, some kind of ritual for when they come back from visits to help set that consistency. Again, in an empathetic way, but trying to kind of help partner with the biological parents so that they know kind of that the child's behaving differently after these visits. So they might be, likely that we would expect that, emotionally affected by the visit. So that, again, you can be partners with them, not in a shaming way, of course. Resources or strategies, picture exchange using phone technology, such as like a voice generating app like Proloquo to Go would be one. Symbol It looks like another one where you could use pictures or symbols to kind of help augment communication while the child's still learning communication, to kind of decrease their frustration level, help them to be able to express what they want and need, and their feelings, and then also being able to kind of receptively understand. Maybe part of the reason they're not seeing a lot of understanding or responding to instructions is that if the child is having some difficulties with expressive language, maybe they're also having some difficulties with the receptive language of kind of understanding what's being communicated to them. So using that picture exchange or that kind of augmentative phone app kind of a strategy not only could help them express what they want to say, but also maybe understand some of the instructions and what people are saying to them. Okay, and then giving more opportunity for communication around the daily routines. I'll note these last ones too, just because safety came up a lot as concerns. Having things like social stories or expectations about what's going to happen during a routine to help, again, ensure safety and teach those kind of safety skills to a child. Before challenging routines, having some sensory things that the child can engage in a safe manner, just to maybe help. And also maybe just like, preparing for those times when you're going out somewhere if the child hasn't gotten any energy out, trying to get a little energy out first might be a good strategy. All right, so that was fast. We'll consolidate those a little bit more, but anything I missed or anything anyone else really wanted to make sure we worked in there before we move on? Keeping an eye on the time here.
That was really good, Jessica. That was really good. I'm always just amazed by the wealth of knowledge and great ideas that come. So thank you, everyone. Courtney, you're not seeing anything else in the chat, are you?
Nope.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to Dr. Simasek, is it okay if I take it back over from you? All right.
Yeah.
So I am going to take it back over. I wanted to thank everyone for coming today. Again, we always standardize this. You'll receive an email to complete a REDCap survey about this session. We do offer certificates of participation. I know many of you are probably applying for relicensures, and you will get those for attending. if you complete the survey. So we'll send a certificate of participation after you complete the feedback survey. And again, feel free to let us know. We plan to run another series of these. We'll bring back some speakers, but also we're open to new. And so if there's something that you would really like, let us know and we'll work to get that. Next slide, please. Courtney, were you about to add something?
Yep, I do also want to add for the surveys, we are going to send out a total like end of the whole series survey. So you get them every week, but there is going to be one that encompasses all that we would really like for you to fill out as well.
Thank you. In summation, and then that might be a chance too when all the sessions are done to say, I would really love a session on fill in the blank.
Yep.
All right, next one. We look forward to you coming to our final session, session 8 of this series. It'll be Rural Approaches to Family-Centered Care. Dr. Kurt Devine of MANN Care. I believe he is the colleague to Dr.
Heather Bell.
Yes, that works a lot around opioid issues. So that will be good as well. So we hope you'll be here next week. And then the next slide, please. Is there a next slide? Oh, yes. Thank you again. Our partners is Minnesota Lend. Again, please apply in the future to our Lend program. It's a wonderful experience. You get paid for a year of learning and share your ideas and experiences. Just look up Minnesota Lend. It's one of our sponsors. Project Scope, Institute of Community Integration at the University of Minnesota, the Tele Outreach Center, and the Minnesota Act Relief Project are all our sponsors, as well as we get support from the Voyager Clinic at the University of Minnesota. Thank you. We appreciate all of you staying. We hope you have a wonderful, I hope, long weekend. If you do celebrate, have a nice holiday weekend, but at the very least, I hope you get some time for rest, relaxation, and time with your families. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week, and enjoy 18 minutes back. We're done early. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.